What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 2 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Malamud, and today we are lucky enough on this Wednesday, September 25th, to have a special guest with us. It's my former co-host on the Mal and Mud podcast, Josh Malat. Josh, thanks for coming on, and this could be a weekly tradition every Wednesday now.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we had a lot of great stuff out of New York sports, and we also had a lot of bad stuff out of New York sports if we're talking baseball. So, I mean, let's not waste any time and let's get into our first thing, and it's the Yankees taking on the Orioles last night. Yankees were looking to clinch an AL East berth last night, but they struggled to do so, and the Orioles end up clinching a playoff spot, obviously in a very tight wild card race right now. They clinch the first berth of any of those teams in that wild card race. Yankees still one game away from an AL East clinching, but obviously we look at last night and the champagne has to be put on ice for just a little bit longer for the Yankees. I mean, last night's game just really, let's start off with your biggest takeaway. A lot of things to take from this game last night. A 5-3 Orioles win.
Yeah, I mean the two biggest takeaways are just a missed opportunity. You had an ice cold Orioles team coming into Yankee Stadium facing a Yankees team that was coming off winning 5 of their 6 games on their West Coast road trip, feeling really good about themselves. Dwindled that magic number to clinch the division down to 1. So a missed opportunity to really put a stranglehold down, win the division, get that over with right away. Don't give the Orioles any hope or any life or give them any confidence as they came into this game as one of the worst teams in baseball across the past month or so, ever since Westburg and Mountcastle went down. The Orioles have been really scuffling and struggling. But the Orioles have played the Yankees tough all year. You knew that they were going to give the Yankees their best fight with their backs against the wall coming into Yankee Stadium, a place that they've actually succeeded in and love to play. So a missed opportunity for the Yankees there as a red-hot team facing an Orioles team that had not been playing really good baseball. But, of course, you have to get into the mental mistakes of the Yankees. I mean, the biggest situation of the game, the game was won for the Orioles and lost for the Yankees by the Yankees bailing out the Orioles in the 7th inning. The Yankees had a great rally going, cut the lead to 1. Cut the game at the time to 1. It was a 4-3 game. Juan Soto just got a huge hit. You're thinking Aaron Judge is about to come up with multiple guys on base. And then all of a sudden, a base running mistake by Juan Soto to go to second. He ended up being in there safely, but that prompted an even bigger base running mistake by Gleyber Torres as he attempted to come home and score. And then that caused a whole rundown, bailed the Orioles out of the inning. Aaron Judge left on deck. I mean, nobody should be moving. You're about to have 2 guys on. Judge coming up, even if they elect to walk Judge with the open base there, whether it's first or second, you still have Austin Wells, who's been awesome coming up with the bases loaded. Just a pivotal point in the game. That at that point, there was a 1-point game. It was a 1-run game. The Yankees bail the Orioles out. All of a sudden, all the momentum and all the feeling and all the energy that had been building up in the stadium as the Yankees were climbing their way back into it had been sucked out of the stadium. And all of a sudden, the first batter of the next inning, Colton Cowser hits an absolute no doubt home run deep into the bleachers in right field. And that just felt like the game right there. The transition between the 7th inning, the Yankees running themselves out of the inning in a potential rally. And all of a sudden the Orioles get one back and the Yankees were never able to recover from that. So yeah, the 2 biggest takeaways, a missed opportunity for the Yankees and base running and mental mistakes that have to be cleaned up if this team intends to win and go deep in October.
Yeah, also happened in the 5th inning where the Yankees had 2 men on and Verdugo came up to bat and grounded into a double play. And sure enough, the next inning, right after, Anthony Santander hits one off the foul pole and right. So, I mean, unlucky for the Yankees, you got to say, after last night's loss. And continuing with unlucky, let's head to tonight's game. And we already have a problem for the Yankees as Nestor Cortes getting an MRI on his elbow. The Yankees really have not announced too much of that. Nestor's not going to start, but you can kind of tell if he is getting an MRI, it's got to be something that they want to look at and take a look at. He's most likely going to be out tonight, and the Yankees are going to have to figure out who's going to start the game. They're taking on Baltimore once again, and it's going to be Zach Eflin on the mound, who's had struggles with some of the Yankee hitters, but also has been dominant against other players, like, for example, Aaron Judge, who he's had a great career ERA against, and has really gone to town on that. For tonight's game, I mean, the Yankees, it's kind of you look at Baltimore and you say, all right, well, maybe a bit of a hangover for Baltimore clinching the playoff berth last night. They got all the champagne and everything. And you would say if the Yankees, yeah, going in should be pretty straightforward here. Just get back to the basics. But all of a sudden now they're down their starting pitcher for tonight. So we'll obviously wait to see who's going to start the game for the Yankees, but it could be a bit of a struggle to try and figure it out. I think the Yankees will hopefully really find a way to get by this.
Right. I mean, the Yankees were looking into going to last night as the team that was looking to celebrate with their magic number to clinch the East just won, but it ended up being the Orioles coming out victorious, and they were the ones celebrating and popping the champagne in the Yankees visitors clubhouse. But what better way to respond with an even bigger celebration tonight by clinching that division, getting the job done tonight? It appears that it'll be Cody Poteet starting for the Yankees tonight in place of Nestor Cortez, who hasn't officially been ruled out, but I think it's safe to assume that if he's an injury bad enough that warrants an MRI and getting real testing done on his left elbow, he's probably not pitching the day of. Now, obviously, Nestor's been a huge part of the team, a huge part of the rotation, and he has been great lately. He's been red hot, one of their most consistent starters throughout the months of August and September after kind of a rocky up and down start throughout most of the season. So that would be a really tough loss for the Yankees if Nestor Cortez is out extended time or even out for the rest of the season. So you hope that it comes back and nothing serious, but he definitely will not be pitching tonight. It looks like Cody Poteet will be making his Yankee return. He was great when he was up in around May or June, filling in for people that were injured, when he was filling in for Clark Schmidt, filling in for Nestor Cortez, filling in for Garrett Cole before he came back. Cody Poteet was a pretty serviceable starter when he was back. So although it's discouraged, it's not encouraging to see Nestor Cortez potentially go down, and we don't know how long he's out for with this MRI, and as we await the results of that, it's good to see Cody Poteet back out there on the mound, coming back off the 60-day IL, and how awesome would that be for him to be thrown into this opportunity after being out for so long with injuries, and all of a sudden he's pitching the potential clincher for the AL East. And if you're the Yankees, although it's looking like they're going to win the AL East, because even if you get swept by the Orioles, you still have the Pirate series. It's so important in my mind for the Yankees to take one out of these final two games to clinch the division and send a message against the Orioles. Because even if you clinch the division against the Pirates, you're not really feeling too good about yourselves, having just given the Orioles all this momentum and all this confidence as a team that you likely will have to see in the playoffs in the division series anyways. So if you're seeing them in the division series, you're feeling a hell of a lot worse having clinched the division against the Pirates as opposed to them after coming off a series in which you allowed them to stave off division elimination by allowing them to step into your building and sweep you. So to me, even though in the grand scheme of things, the Yankees don't really need it because they're going to get one win against the Pirates in all likelihood anyway. If you're the Yankees, you want to send a message to the Orioles that they can't step into Yankee Stadium and prevent you from clinching the East. To me, the Yankees need to get one of these final two games, feel good about themselves, clinch the division against the team that they've been fighting and battling for the division against all year long. They need to get the job done either tonight or tomorrow, clinch the division against the Orioles so that they could go into the playoffs feeling much better about themselves against the team that in all likelihood they may have to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, and if you're the Yankees, you're also hoping for that one seed and clinching that. Obviously, still fighting with Cleveland. That's another thing on the Yankees' mind that they will try to continue to go after to make it maybe even an easier route for them heading into this postseason. But obviously, the Yankees and the Orioles, second game of a three-game set going on tonight, 7:05 start. It's Eflin versus Petit, most likely for the Yankees and the Orioles in the Bronx. All right, and let's take things to the other side of New York as the New York Mets took on the Atlanta Braves last night, and it was just a struggle throughout for New York as the Atlanta Braves win this one 5-1 behind 7 really strong innings from Schwellenbach, the starter for Atlanta last night, and Severino got banged up. 4 innings pitched and 7 hits, 4 earned runs, and 5 strikeouts, but he struggled to really get out of that third inning, where a lot of the trouble came, and it really was a bad recipe for the rest of the game. Couple innings after, and I mean, this Braves team is fighting for their playoff lives right now, Josh. So looking at it, the Mets they knew it was going to be a tough series. They're on the road. It's in Atlanta. All the pressure is really on Atlanta to continue to fight to get into that playoff spot. But I mean, if you're the Mets, you kind of have to just swallow this one and move on to the next day. But talking about last night's game, it was just a struggle for Severino.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Mets fan right now, you've been playing just such good baseball lately. You just had such a special, magical season. A team that looked like they were going to be rebuilding, not competing this year. You had the whole Grimace thing. You had OMG with Jose Iglesias. I mean, just everything about this team. The vibes with this team have been immaculate. This team just felt like it had something magical about them, and it's just been such a special season. And they've been playing such good baseball recently, coming off a gigantic series win against the Phillies over the weekend. But now here are the Braves, and you have to step into Atlanta and you have to get the job done. And if you're a Mets fan, despite how well things have been going lately, you can't help but think, oh boy, this is deja vu all over again. Thinking back to 2022 when the Mets lost the division and had to be a wild card team because they got swept by Atlanta in an important series late in the season. And here we are in Atlanta again, and the Mets have to figure out a way to get the job done and erase these demons and erase these bad thoughts. A tough game yesterday. Yes, it's one game, but if you're a Mets fan, you're thinking, here we go again, because now you have Chris Sale going tonight and Max Fried looming on Thursday, two of the best pitchers in the entire league. So if you're a Mets fan, you definitely have to be worried, but ultimately it's one game. You have to shake this off. You're still a game up on the Braves, and you have the Diamondbacks that are scuffling too. But between the Padres got a big win last night, they clinched a spot in the playoffs. So now between the Mets, Diamondbacks, and the Braves, you have three teams fighting for two wild card spots. Now, it's very possible that the Braves and the Mets both get in with the way that the Diamondbacks are playing, and the Diamondbacks actually play the Padres in a gigantic series this weekend. So if the Padres end up beating up on the Diamondbacks, it's very possible that both the Mets and the Braves both end up getting in. But at the same time, there's no guarantee that that happens. And if you're the Mets, you need to win at the very least, one of these next two games to guarantee that you control your own destiny towards making the playoffs. Because if the Mets get swept over the Braves, and all of a sudden the Braves are ahead of the Mets going into the final series, and then the Mets are going to need some help, right? But if the Mets can win one of these final two games, then the Mets control their own destiny toward whether or not they make the playoffs. So it's imperative that the Mets erase all these demons. They don't even need to win this series. They just need to take one of these games going into their final series so that they don't need help and they don't need to depend on the Braves or the Diamondbacks on losing for their chances of making it to the playoffs. So a tough loss for the Mets last night, but it's really important for them to find a way to erase these demons of seasons past when the Braves have just destroyed all the Mets' hopes and dreams and have just tormented them in important games late in the season. But Michael Harris was absolutely outstanding last night. You said it, Schwellenbach was absolutely brilliant. 7 innings, 1 run. The Mets really could not do anything offensively. Michael Harris killed the Mets. He went deep. He made an incredible play in the field that probably saved a Mets rally. So a really good game all around by the Braves, who have also been playing good baseball in their own right as of late, and they're also dealing with a hell of a lot of injuries. So the fact that they're at this point still with the chance to make the playoffs is absolutely brilliant, with the losses to guys like Spencer Strider and Acuna, two of the best players in the league. But the Braves are here. They're battle tested, and who knows? The last time the Braves got this injured and this banged up, what happened? They ended up winning going all the way to the World Series and winning the whole thing back in 2021. So certainly anything's possible. But if you're the Mets, you need to find a way to get the job done. Take one of these last two games so that you control your own destiny for a playoff spot going into the final weekend of the season, and don't put this magical season to waste.
Yeah, Austin Riley, another guy who's banged up for the Braves right now. I mean, if you look at it from the Mets, it's kind of you look at last night, like I said, and you kind of just have to put it behind you. The one thing I will say for the Mets is they really need to challenge Chris Sale. And that's the big thing for tonight. Just looking back to last night, obviously Severino got beat up and only 4 innings pitched. The Mets had to rely on their bullpen for 4 innings. The Braves, on the other hand, had their setup man and their closer in and just shut the door on the Mets. So they're not too worried about their bullpen right now. And if you're the Mets, it's kind of getting to Chris Sale and trying to get him out of the game a little bit earlier than the Braves may want, and try and get into that bullpen as well. But I mean, the Mets offense, yes, there were some great plays from a lot of the Braves players. One of them, Michael Harris, who made an outstanding diving catch for the Braves yesterday. But yeah, 4 hits is just not enough for the New York Mets, and they have to get something going as we move into tonight's matchup with Chris Sale taking on David Peterson, and Peterson has been real strong for the Mets over the last couple of months or so, Josh. And looking at tonight, it could end up being just a pitcher's duel, and whichever one gives up a run, like it could be as simple as that. But obviously, with Chris Sale on the mound, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the Mets. Two lefties. That's, I think, one thing that stands out. Maybe a little bit harder for some of those hitters. But it should be a real good matchup tonight. Like I said, a real pitcher's duel it could be in the end.
Right. I mean, David Peterson has been great for the Mets, but Chris Sale is the Cy Young winner this year. Chris Sale has had a monumental season, 18-3, 2.38 ERA, 101 whip. He's pitched his most innings by far since his early days in Boston. Just a career renaissance that really should cement himself as a first ballot Hall of Famer in my mind. Was great for a decade, had his injury concerns, but the fact that he's been able to bounce back and have a season like this where he's going to finally get that elusive Cy Young, essentially the only thing he's been missing from his otherwise brilliant Hall of Fame career. I mean, you can't help but be happy for the guy, but the Mets definitely have their work cut out for them facing the best pitcher all year this year. And David Peterson's going to have to be excellent to give the Mets a chance. But the biggest thing for the Mets is, will Francisco Lindor play? He's been out for the past week or so with that back injury. He's been getting work done. It's been said that it's very possible that he could come back soon to DH, but he's not quite ready to be back in the field yet. But he's there. He's the Mets MVP. He's been the engine that's gotten this Mets team going. Obviously, the Mets have had all these players contributing from all over the roster, but Lindor is really the guy that has gotten everything going and that has made things happen for the Mets. So they really need him in there, even if he's not in the field, even if he's just a DH, just to have his presence and his bat to lengthen that lineup would be absolutely gigantic for this Mets team as we head down the stretch here. They need him healthy. But yeah, I mean, they're going to need a great pitching performance from David Peterson, especially going up against Chris Sale. Obviously, the Braves are going to be favored in this game. Obviously, you're going to give the Braves the edge in every facet, from the pitching to psychologically, especially the way that the Braves have handled the Mets in big games, especially with Lindor out, with the way that the way that the Braves took down the Mets yesterday. Obviously, everything tips the scales in the Braves' favor. Obviously, the game is in Atlanta. The Mets are going to have to go in Atlanta and get a big win. A lot of things are going against the Mets right now, but the Mets just have to rely on that magic that they've been producing all year. Just when people doubt them and just when people count them out, they seem to come out with a rabbit out of their hat and pull out a big win. And the Mets are going to look to do that exact same thing tonight and continue this season's magic and try to erase some of those bad, dark memories of 2022 and years past when the Braves have broken the Mets' heart.
Yeah, so Chris Sale also just one appearance first. The Mets this year was back on July 25th. He was in New York for that one, and he didn't get a decision in the end. It was a 3-2 win in 10 for the Mets. So trying to get a win for the Braves tonight, and it's coming down to the wire in the NL wild card. Obviously, the Diamondbacks struggling right now and trying to figure things out. But for right now, what the Mets have to focus on is their series and winning one of these games, like you said, Josh, against this Braves team who's a tough one with two tough pitchers coming up in the next 2 games. But it's the Mets and the Braves, 7:20 tonight in Atlanta, the second game of a 3-game set, a crucial one for the New York Mets. Tune in later. We take things from the diamond to the gridiron now, as we'll talk about the New York Jets from the other night. Josh, as the Jets coming off a 24-3 victory last Thursday night against their rival New England Patriots. I mean, I talked about this on Monday. The big takeaway, I guess, for me has to be Aaron Rodgers and how well he was able to control this Jets offense. His final stat line, 27 of 35, 281, 2 touchdowns, no picks, only 2 sacks for the Jets. And I mean, for a team that came into the season really cleaning up their offensive line, cleaning up their offense as a whole, to make it a bit better for Aaron Rodgers and a better system for him. I mean, he looked rock solid the other night. 27 of 35. Like I said, I mean, the completion percentage is back to really the days of the MVP Aaron Rodgers. He's just in a good spot right now, looks comfortable. And yes, it's going up against New England, so won't take too much from this game, but even the last two, it's like he's looked like he's in better control of this Jets offense, and really the first time in I think 10 years as a Jets fan that I said, all right, completely dominated a game throughout, and I felt so comfortable watching the game overall.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Jets fan, this has to be the most encouraged you've been after a game in quite some time. And Aaron Rodgers looked excellent. You know, you just wanted to get through. You just wanted him to get through the first game healthy, then and knock some of that rust off. The Jets didn't really need him to be Aaron Rodgers in the second game. They were able to pull out a win in Tennessee. But then game three, that was Aaron Rodgers. That's the Aaron Rodgers that Jets fans, the Jets organization, everybody has been waiting to see ever since he's come back from that injury, and he looked excellent threw it 27 to 35 for almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, just a flawless performance. The only complaint that you have if you're a Jets fan, and the only not really a concern because you know that it's going to get going eventually, but the only complaint that you have as a Jets fan and the only concern that you would have about Aaron Rodgers is him and Garrett Wilson are clearly not on the same page. But Aaron Rodgers said after the game, wait until me and five get on the same page. And if you're a Jets fan, that just has to absolutely warm your heart and feel incredible because he knows that the team clicked on all cylinders. He was great tonight. The team played a great game, but him and Garrett Wilson still aren't even on the same page. And to me, it's only a matter of time before Garrett Wilson and Rodgers get on the same page and it becomes a Devontae Adams-esque connection and they start rolling and Garrett Wilson starts popping off. So if you're a Jets fan right now, obviously the Patriots aren't that good of a team, so this is a team that at home you had to win. You should have won. Everything on paper lined up for you to win, and you took care of business, and you did what you were supposed to do. But when Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson get on the same page, now we're talking. But overall, just a flawless, great performance from the Jets, and then another keynote from the game. For as good as Aaron Rodgers was, this may be not as good news for Breece Hall fantasy owners, but the Jets have themselves quite the running back tandem between Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. So overall, the defense played a great game. Obviously, the Patriots' offense isn't all that great, but the defense played their part, held them to just that lone field goal in the first half. The Jets have themselves a running back duo, and Aaron Rodgers looked incredible. So all in all, really good for the Jets, and just a really good game, really good performance. You're feeling really good if you're a Jets fan right now.
Yeah, and the one thing with Wilson right now is yeah, they're not always on the same page, but he did find a way to find Wilson. That one play right in the red zone said he can run it, he could do it. No, I'm gonna find five and get him in the end zone, give him some confidence. And I mean that was not an easy play. I think really select few players, select few quarterbacks can actually make that kind of throw. Really close to the sideline, get it perfectly in the hands of their receiver. And obviously the athleticism of Garrett Wilson helped that one out. But also for the Jets, the defense really stepping up. 7 sacks overall. 2 of them came on the last drive against Drake May, but 5 sacks against Jacoby Brissett, who only had 98 passing yards throughout the entire game. Jets lost Jermaine Johnson last week for the season. All of a sudden, Will McDonald comes in and didn't lose a step from what Jermaine Johnson has been able to do on this defense. CJ Mosley got banged up, should be not too serious, and they'll figure that out. But the Jets defense, yeah, I mean, if Rodgers and the offense is putting up 24 points a game, they will win comfortably because this defense is arguably one of the best in the NFL, arguably the top one, and will not allow a lot of points to opposing offenses.
Yeah, and then going back to the Jets offense real quick, the thing that you love that you see quite often with past Aaron Rodgers offenses, and that you love to see with this Jets offense is spreading the wealth. 8 different receivers caught a pass. You have Tyler Conklin, Alan Lazard, Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, obviously, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Jeremy Ruckert, Xavier Gibson. So you love spreading the wealth, getting everybody involved. And then if you start getting everybody involved and all these people are catching passes, all of a sudden not all the attention isn't on a Garrett Wilson, isn't on a Breece Hall, and all of a sudden that'll open the field for the Garrett Wilson, the Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson connection to open up and take shape. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, 5 receptions, 33 yards. Those numbers will increase. Still had 9 targets, by far the most on the team. So yeah, obviously, Aaron Rodgers is trying his best to get Garrett Wilson involved in there, and they're going to get going. But given the fact that they haven't gotten going yet, and the Jets offense still look this good, and the team overall look this good, you feel like it's only going up from here if you're the Jets, and the connection is only going to get better, and Aaron Rodgers is only going to get on the same page with everybody on the entire offense as everybody learns his cadence, everybody learns Aaron Rodgers' tactics, everybody learns his timing. As everybody starts to get more accustomed to Aaron Rodgers being their quarterback, you just feel like the offense is going to run more smoothly than even it has already in these first couple of weeks, and nothing but encouraging signs for the Jets, and it's up from here. I feel like for them, I mean, it is not crazy to say that yes, the Jets' 2 wins have come against the Titans and the Patriots, and they lost a tough one opening night. That's a tough draw opening night on the road in San Francisco. You can't really fault them for losing that one. But it's really not out of the realm of possibility to say that this Jets team is competing and has their eyes on a potential Super Bowl. It really is not crazy to say that. I mean, obviously, you have to let the season play out. You have to see what happens. You have to see how the season evolves and how the team grows together and how Aaron Rodgers looks midseason toward the end of the season. But it really is not out of the realm of possibility to say that this Jets team can compete with any team in the NFL and should have their eyes on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean we even saw it the other night with Robert Saleh hugging or trying to hug Aaron Rodgers, and it's kind of one of those things as a Jet fan. We're just not used to that. It's
Right.
very new for us. So even that Aaron Rodgers is like, hey, I do this every day. Like it's all good. This is going to be every week. This is not just a one-time thing here. So Salah's excited. He was really every Jet fan in that moment. Obviously caused some ruckus in the media, but all a bunch of nothing. But yeah, Jet fans not used to that kind of performance and that against the Patriots, of course. But let's take it from last week into this week as the Jets get a pretty favorable matchup now against the Denver Broncos, who are coming off a huge win. They went on the road and absolutely dominated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 26-7 in Tampa last week. So you would say, all right, well, the Broncos are coming in with some confidence. I mean, the Jets on their home field, if they take things how they did versus New England as well as Tennessee and are able to kind of take this game by the throat from the beginning, I think the Jets will be in good shape. Although Bo Nix has looked pretty solid so far in his NFL career.
Obviously, you look on paper, the game's in New York. The Jets are coming off a couple of big wins. This is just another team that on paper favors the Jets, a team that they should take care of, a team that they should win. But you said it, they're coming off a rather shocking win this past weekend against the Bucs. So obviously anything can happen. Bo Nix finally showed a little bit of what he can do and showing a little bit of that promise as a first round quarterback draft pick for the Broncos, and they hope that they finally have found their franchise quarterback. But if you're the Jets, you can't take this matchup lightly. You have to go into this one with the same, urgency and fierceness that you went into the Patriot game, the home opener, that you went into the Tennessee game. So you can't take this game lightly because the Broncos have proven that they can be a good football team and that they can beat a good football team. But the Jets are favored by 7.5. On paper, this is a game that the Jets should win, and they should look to keep it rolling and win their third straight right here.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the only thing that could really hold the Jets back would be the couple of injuries. CJ Mosley's questionable right now. Obviously, going to see based on how many days he practices and everything. And Morgan Moses is out for a couple of weeks now. So the Jets lose an offensive tackle. However, I mean, this is also new for a Jets fan. They lose one of their key men, but they have a guy to replace him right away, even a first rounder that they drafted. Olu Fashanu out of Penn State is going to come in now and be the offensive tackle, replace Morgan Moses. I think that might be the first time ever in my Jets fan life that there is a really solid replacement behind a big offensive lineman or a big star for this Jets team. And it just kind of shows you where they're at right now. But like I said, I think the only thing that can hold this team back would be maybe those injuries kind of affected. Fashanu could have a rough game or somebody replacing Mosley. If he's out, then it's not as easy. But looking at it on paper, I mean, this Jets defense gives a lot of young quarterbacks trouble. And although Bo Nix has looked great so far, he has gone against a couple of defenses, the Steelers, who caused him a little bit of trouble. Only 6 points he put up on the board that day. Seattle and Tampa are a bit of weaker defenses, and he was able to really take advantage of them. 20 points against Seattle and 26 points against Tampa Bay. This is a different animal when you're going up against the Jets defense or, for example, the Steelers defense. And I think on paper, the Jets, looking at it right now, 7.5 point favorites, but it is a low total. So it tells you that this game is going to be probably full of defense. 38.5 is a low total. So I think looking at it, if the Jets on defense are strong, it could be a long day for Bo Nix and this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're the Jets, I mean, this is a team that you have to take care of. The Broncos, like we said, they're coming off that big win, so you can't take this game lightly. Bo Nix has kind of had an up and down start to his NFL career, kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He's thrown 4 picks already on the year. Aaron Rodgers has been essentially flawless, has those 5 touchdowns and 1 pick. But yeah, I mean, it's the Jets with all these nationally televised games. This is one of their only non-prime time 1 o'clock start games. But it's another game in New York, and the Jets look to keep rolling here.
So it's the Jets taking on the Broncos this Sunday, 1 o'clock. Jets 7.5 point favorites coming in. As we'll look and keep an eye on that one. We'll talk a little bit more about that one on Friday's episode. As we move to the other side of MetLife, and the New York Giants coming off a huge win on the road in Cleveland, 21-15 to grab their first win of the season. And I mean, if you look at it from the Giants' point of view, that first half was pretty darn flawless. And if you look at it from the point of Daniel Jones, he was pretty darn good in this game. And with all the pressure going on in from the fan base, from just the Giants in general, they grab a big win on the road and could help their confidence in future weeks. But I mean, just looking at it from this game, Josh, biggest takeaway from this Giants win on the road.
Well, the biggest takeaway from this game is Malik Neighbors is ridiculous. And Malik Neighbors is the real deal. The Giants have so long looked for that featured target ever since they traded away Odell Beckham Jr., ironically enough, to the Cleveland Browns, who they just ended up beating this past week. But Malik Neighbors is the real deal. The Giants finally got their guy that they've been searching for all these years, and he is amazing. 8 receptions, 78 yards, a couple of touchdowns coming off that monster game that he had the previous week against Washington, too, although unfortunately that wasn't enough. But, I mean, another takeaway is Daniel Jones is a very confusing quarterback. One of the most confusing quarterbacks we've ever seen. Just as you're ready to throw the white flag, say, we're sending in Drew Lock, we're done with Daniel Jones, we need to get our guy. Daniel Jones has this type of performance. 24-34, 236 yards, a couple of touchdowns, no turnovers. I mean, he was excellent yesterday, or this past Sunday, and there's no doubt about that. But the inconsistency is what drives Giants fans crazy, right? What are you going to get out of Daniel Jones on a weekly basis? And you really don't know. It could be that type of performance. It could be a performance like we saw that was incredible in the playoff game against Minnesota a couple years ago that earned Daniel Jones the money that he's making now. Or it could be a bad performance like we saw against the Minnesota Vikings on the opening day of the season. So you really don't know what you're going to get out of Daniel Jones. And then another thing is Devin Singletary has played the part. Obviously, Devin Singletary is not what Saquon Barkley is, and Giants fans are going to miss Saquon Barkley. But Devin Singletary does the job, gets it done, scored another touchdown this past week, and he's a serviceable running back replacing Saquon Barkley. Ultimately, things couldn't have gone much better for the Giants after those first couple plays. I mean, the game couldn't have started off on a more sour note with the fumble on the opening kickoff, and then one play from scrimmage, and Deshaun Watson throws a touchdown pass to Amari Cooper. But after that, it was smooth sailing until the fourth quarter when the Browns made a little bit of a comeback, but the Giants were able to get a bunch of key defensive stops, hold them off, and ultimately win the game. But after those opening plays, the Giants essentially dominated the game, dominated the rest of the game, and they got a big win to avoid an 0-3 start and get on the board.
Yeah, and I think the other end of it with the Giants defense, who, I mean, year after year, the Giants continue on the defensive side to be pretty strong when it comes to their line, and it maybe the struggles come more in the secondary and trying to stop those star wide receivers on the other end. They did struggle in this one at the beginning of it to handle a guy like Amari Cooper, 7 receptions, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But the possibility of the Giants defense being, or the Giants defensive line being at the top of the league is definitely not out of the realm, because they made it trouble for Deshaun Watson in this one. He was 21 of 37, 196 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks, but 8 sacks in this one. 8 sacks against Deshaun Watson in this Cleveland offense. And yes, the offensive line for Cleveland's been beat up. That's been a big story for them to start the season. But 8 sacks is a lot to give up on your home field. And the Giants defense were after Watson in this one. And I think that's a huge confidence booster that, although it may not be pretty on offense every single game, they can rely on their defense to keep the score pretty low for the opponent and still find a way to bring out wins for this team as they look to continue to build on this one.
Right, absolutely. I mean, even though the Giants have, over the last couple of years had a much stronger have a much stronger defensive line than they do a secondary. Because of that weak secondary, they've still had a lot of trouble getting to the quarterback, because other opposing teams would expose that, get the ball out quickly, get the ball out to their receivers, and the defense just simply has not had enough time to apply pressure to the quarterback. So it was really encouraging to see the Giants get 8 sacks and really get on Deshaun Watson and really get past that offensive line. Their most sacks in a game since 2016, when they also played against the Cleveland Browns, ironically enough. But big day for the Giants defense, applying that pressure on Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, you can't help but be confused about him. Obviously, he had that year-long absence, got this huge contract, has all this guaranteed money, and is just simply not the same guy that we saw in Houston. Yeah, the 2 touchdowns, no picks, but still not the same guy that looked like a guy that could rival Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in the league back in his Texans days. So the Browns not getting the guy in Deshaun Watson that they thought that they were going to get, but a big win for the Giants. But I guess the most confusing and or concerning part about the Giants that you really look at, if you consider this concerning, is which direction is this franchise going into? Because I was saying after their 0-2 start, okay, I guess this team is really tanking, and that's it for the season. They're punting the season away. They're going to tank. They're going to get the franchise quarterback, and they need a reset here. But they lost their first 2 games, win this game. All of a sudden, this is such an encouraging win, and Daniel Jones looks so good that it's like, okay, well, now are we trying to compete? And we're about to look ahead to Thursday Night Football when the Giants play the Cowboys in a minute. And this game, I think, will really say a lot about the Giants. Is it going to be like past games where the Giants just let the Cowboys walk all over them, step into MetLife, and just take care of business? Or are the Giants going to actually send a statement, follow up a big win with another big win and another big-time performance? But a really confusing thing about the Giants, especially after this game and after a big win going on the road in Cleveland, is which direction is this Giants team going into? Do they intend on competing this year? Are they intending on tanking? Do they still believe in Daniel Jones? Do they think that Daniel Jones is the guy? Are they going to move on from Daniel Jones? So many questions that have to be answered throughout the rest of the season if you're the New York Giants organization and if you're a New York Giants fan.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a great transition into our Thursday Night Football preview for this week. And we're lucky enough to have one of the New York teams on Thursday Night Football. It's the Dallas Cowboys taking on the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium Thursday at 8:15. And we look at even just the spread coming into this one, 5.5 right now in favor of Dallas, as the Giants come in as 5.5-point underdogs. 44.5 is the total. Vegas kind of tells you, although the Cowboys are struggling, they should be able to take it to this Giants team. And obviously we remember last year, but I obviously look at now this year for the Giants and kind of wiping away what happened last year against the Cowboys opening week. And now you look at this one and say, all right, well, we got some confidence coming off of that win in Cleveland. This offense looks a little bit better than it has in years past, finally, after last week, and the target that Malik Neighbors is. And Dallas has not been great coming into this one. Obviously sitting at 1-2 now. Couple losses, New Orleans, Baltimore, where they really got dominated throughout. Although, yeah, they cut it close at the end against Baltimore. That game was really over within the middle of the third quarter. And obviously Dallas came back and made it a 3-point game in the end. But Giants have some confidence this time going against the Cowboys, who are struggling a little bit on offense to really figure things out, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head there. I mean, obviously the Cowboys are going to be favored. They've had their way with the Giants, especially recently. They just continually dominate the Giants. You think about the Thanksgiving game a couple of years ago, opening night last year, just a couple of embarrassing losses for Giants and Giants fans. But if you're the Giants, you look at this as an opportunity. You're coming off a big win going on the road against Cleveland. You get to come home on the national stage. Now, if you're the Giants and you're a Giants fan, you just don't want to get embarrassed here. At least make it a competitive game because the Cowboys have just continually embarrassed you on national television. It seems like year after year after year. But this is an opportunity. You have some momentum now. You're coming off a big win on the road. You're playing against a Cowboys team that is kind of lacking confidence right now and is struggling as of late. And you nailed it. They got absolutely embarrassed and walked all over by New Orleans. And then last week they were getting embarrassed and walked all over by Baltimore, minus a late fourth quarter comeback. But by then, it was too little too late. Baltimore essentially dominated the entire game for 3+ quarters until the Cowboys finally woke up late in the fourth quarter to make it close. But that game was not as close as the score would indicate. But if you're the Giants, this is an opportunity to really send a statement to the division. I mean, they aside from Washington, who they lost to a couple weeks ago inexcusably, but aside from Washington, between the Eagles and the Cowboys, the Giants have just never had their way in the division. So this is an opportunity on prime television to finally get that recognizable win with the whole world watching. Put your name on the national stage, get a big divisional win at home on Thursday Night Football, and this will really show you a lot about what this Giants team is made of and what Daniel Jones is made of. I mean, a big thing about Daniel Jones in his career have been his inconsistencies and his inability to follow up a really good performance with an even better signature performance. Are we going to get Daniel Jones from weeks 1 and 2, or mainly Daniel Jones that struggled week 1 in this game against the Cowboys, and Daniel Jones has traditionally struggled against the Cowboys? Are we going to get week 1 Daniel Jones that struggled, or are we going to get week 3 Daniel Jones that looked incredible against the Cleveland Browns? And this is a Cowboys defense that traditionally has dominated the Giants and has been really good, but has been really, really bad so far to start the season. So this game will really show you a lot about this Giants team and a lot about Daniel Jones and how's Daniel Jones going to respond from a good performance, and how's he going to follow that up against the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football? Can he give the Giants another good performance? It'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, 100%. And just looking at this Cowboys defense, the last couple of games, the run game has just been woeful for this Cowboys defense to really go after. 190 yards on the ground they led up to the Saints, and then 274 yards they led up to the Ravens last week on the ground. And the Ravens, obviously a traditional running team. 274 yards is college numbers. So they cannot be letting up that much to their opponents, and they really
and that's after Alvin Kamara. And that's after Alvin Kamara put up 4 touchdowns on them. So yeah, this Cowboys rushing defense has really struggled.
Exactly, and it could be a big day for a guy like Devin Singletary, something to watch out for. But the Giants offense, they got to feel confident, and the Giants defense as well needs to feel confident coming into this one. 19 points and 25 points that it comes down to the last couple of weeks for Dallas. So should be an interesting one. Traditional thing here, Josh, as we pick the game, I'm going to take the Cowboys, but the Giants to cover the 5.5. I think the Giants keep it closer this time around just because the Cowboys are just trying to find anything. Their defense is not working. Their offense has looked a bit slow, except for, later in games, they finally figure things out. But it definitely is a worrying sign for the Cowboys right now. And I think the Giants got them kind of at the right time. And I think the Giants keep it close. I still think the Cowboys will come up with a win.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a time to play the Cowboys, the time is now to make a statement and take advantage of a Cowboys team that's kind of struggling chemistry-wise, confidence-wise. It seems like the Cowboys have kind of lost their edge that they've typically had over the last couple of regular seasons, when consistently they go out there and they win 12 games and they get the job done in the regular season. It's just the playoffs that the Cowboys seem to have problems in. But the Giants really have caught them at a good time. They're struggling right now. They're lacking confidence. As a Giants fan, this is a really tough pick to make, but I have to go with the Cowboys here to get a win. I just have to take away my bias. Boy, oh boy, do I hope I'm wrong. And the Giants come up with a big-time signature win on Thursday Night Football. But I'm going to stick with you here. I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win, the Giants to hopefully keep it close and cover and not get embarrassed like they have in seasons past on national television. And I don't think the game's going to be all that high scoring. I'm going to go with the under to hit here. I don't think that both offenses are rolling. I think the defenses kind of keep the game manageable and on the lower scoring end. So I've got the Cowboys to come away with a much needed win here on Thursday Night Football at MetLife, but the Giants to keep the game close and cover.
100% agree with you. Well, Josh, thanks for being on. We'll definitely have you here in future weeks. It could be a Wednesday tradition. But until next time.
Thanks for having me on. It was awesome. I love talking about sports with you.
But that'll do it for episode 2 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. From Josh Malat, I've been Zach Malamuth. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you on Friday.